Good morning, everybody. It is 11 o'clock and it's not Saturday, it is Sunday and it's the live gardening clinic. And I welcome everybody today who's going to be joining me, and we've got an exciting one today. We've got lots of things to cover. So hopefully I'll be answering some of your queries, which will be good for lots of different things this week. I don't know if anybody saw, but I did my debut on QVC yesterday. It was great fun, lovely people, really enjoyed it. And you'll be seeing a little bit more of me there as well. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Mark Lane. I'm a TV gardening presenter. I'm a published author and I'm an award-winning garden designer. And my new book, The Royal Gardens of the World, is coming out in September of this year. So you can buy it obviously in good bookstores or anywhere online. So this week we have lots of things to be looking at. Good morning, Mark. Very nice to see you here. We are going to be looking at what to sow now for winter or early spring colour, and I think that's actually Mark's question. How to prune a rampant Floribunda rose, the best way to support dahlias, how to get a bumper crop of apples, growing herbs for like herbal teas, and in particular we'll be looking at lemon verbena, chamomile, ginseng, peppermint and pineapple sage. And if we've got the time, we'll also be talking about misshapen peony flowers. So obviously we're now in May. It's a lovely time in the garden. I know the weather's changed a little bit and the temperature has dropped quite a bit, but it's still quite nice out there. I'll be going out there a little bit later to make my floral crown for Garden Day. So everybody can see that and possibly have a laugh to see my creation. So first of all, my question, which was from Mark, is this. Is there anything that I can be sowing now while I have the time that will give me colour in the garden through the winter? Usually so busy with work, winter colour gets forgotten about. That's very, very true, Mark. I mean, there is a lot to do in the garden, and we do often forget about sort of winter colour, but there are many plants that we can grow from seed that will give us winter/early spring interest, and it's really simple to do. And the three that sort of really come to mind are good old pansies, polyanthus, and wallflowers. Now, for many years, pansies were actually sown in summer for flowering in the spring. But in recent years, there's been sort of a trend to growing them for winter flowering outdoors, and rightly so, because they're absolutely beautiful pansies. Now, pansies are obviously ideal for spring displays, either in beds or containers. A hanging basket sort of planted solely with pansies is really effective and really beautiful. And they just sort of trail over the edge of window boxes without hanging down too far. But perhaps the best way, I think, to use pansies, especially those with the more interesting colour combinations, is on their own in a broad, sort of flat container. And they can be displayed either on the patio, near the door where you can see them, and will provide a long spell of intriguing colours. Now, they're not difficult to raise from seed. For an autumn planting to flower in the spring, seed needs to be sown any time from May to early July. So now is the perfect time to sort of start doing it. A soilless compost is suitable, but should have extra perlite added if you suspect the drainage may be poor. And if you remember last week I did a little bit on perlite, and I always like to add it into my sort of mixes because it just helps with drainage and also holds water without holding it, without the plants kind of getting waterlogged. Now, so all you need to do is then, once you've sown the seed on the top, is cover thinly with vermiculite or even horticultural grit will do. Place it in a temperature of around about sort of 15 to 18 degrees Celsius, which is around about sort of 60, 65 degrees Fahrenheit, and then they'll start to germinate. High temperatures and fluctuating moisture levels are the most likely causes of failure. So you want to be able to keep that temperature quite even, and obviously you want to make sure that your watering is spot on when it comes to it. And then of course, once they've started to grow, You prick out the seedlings when they're large enough to handle using a similar compost. They can either go into trays, or I use sort of 7 centimetre square pots or 9 centimetre pots. Early sowing may appreciate obviously that 9 centimetre pot, that sort of slightly sort of larger size. They can be grown on in a cold frame right up until September, when they'll be ready for planting. Now remember, these are hardies. They can go out, they will cope. There's no problem at all. For containers of the hanging baskets in particular, planting in early spring is often more successful though. In this case, a later sowing is probably suitable. So you're looking more towards that sort of July end in order to do that. Or you could even do it as late as August or September. And the seedlings should be pricked out again into 9 centimetre pots and grown through the winter, simply in a cold frame before planted up in early March. So you've got two there. If you start sowing earlier, you can get them out into September, and then they'll start pumping away sort of a little bit earlier, or you can leave the sowing a little bit later, up until August, even September, for them to flower around into the springtime. You sort of stagger the sowing, then you're probably going to get a lovely continuation of pansies. And they should only really be covered in severe cold water. John's come on board. He's saying, today's my daughter's Grain's birthday. Happy birthday to you. Now, of course, the next one is Polyanthus. Polyanthus is another great one to grow. And the best time to sow Polyanthus, Aculis and Auricula, there's two types, is between February and April. However, a little frost can aid germination, but in very severe areas, you should delay sowing to March or April, and you will still get flowers in the following spring, even if you sow before the end of May. Good morning, Phil. So you've actually got a nice long window there for Polyanthus, and I would say here we are, sort of early May time is still a good time to sow Polyanthus. You sow them into a seed tray rather than outside directly. You need a gritty compost, about 50-50. So 50% grit, 50% peat-free multi-purpose compost. Tiny seeds sprinkle over the surface. So just sprinkle them over the surface of the compost, but don't cover them because they are tiny. Leave them uncovered. Put them in a cold frame and just keep them moist. And within 2 to 4 weeks, you can grow them on, still in a cool, sort of moist environment. And then, of course, another one that's really good. Oh, good morning, Jackie, as well. Good morning to you. Another great one, of course, is wallflowers. Now, wallflowers are lovely. I love growing wallflowers in the garden. I sort of go for the sort of more sort of rich, sort of orangey, red, sort of purple sort of tones. For me, they sort of just add that lovely bit of zinginess to the garden. And good morning, Penny. And the wallflowers are actually best grown as a hardy biennial. The seeds need to be sown outdoors between May and July, so now is a good time, so that the plant flowers between April and June the following year. So we started off with the pansies, so we've got those pansies which will be sort of continuing on. We've got the polyanthus which will then start coming out, and then we've got the wallflowers that will then just continue as well. So you've got this whole continuation of colour, which is brilliant, of course, because that's what we want over the winter and early springtime. Now, wallflower seeds should germinate within 7 to 14 days. And as they grow, obviously you need to thin them out, as you do with anything. And then you want sort of fine spacing of around about 15 centimetres, so the plants can grow nice and bushy. Now, I always sow my wallflower seeds into those Jiffy 7s, those sort of little coir pellets. You can just put them into water and they expand, and therefore you've got these individual little cells, really, that seeds can go into, and they can just sort of grow from there. And the great thing about those is that as the plant gets bigger, you can just simply move them and separate them, so you can just have more space between them. You're not constricted with like a seed tray or with sort of a standard way of sowing them. Then all you need to do, so you put them into the seeds, into the Jiffy Sevens in early June, then potted into the deep sort of 1 litre pots and stored on and water absorbing via, ideally, if you can, via capillary matting. That's that matting that you put onto the base, and then you soak the capillary matting, and then the water is taken up by capillary action into the plants. And then you're then free at the end of August to put them out in the garden. And remember, they are hardy, so these are brilliant plants to have in the garden. Now, I have no room to sow them direct, but if you can find space for a seed bed, then you'll have good germination rates from sowing wallflowers straight into your garden soil. So you can do it that way as well. So unlike the polyanthus and the pansies, which I would always say is always better to actually do them first into seed trays or into little Jiffy Sevens, with wallflowers, you can do them direct outside. So there's a lot of colour, textures going on. Pansies, as we know, come in a wide range of colours. So do polyanthus now. I personally really love polyanthus. I think there's something about them. I think the fact that you sort of get this lovely sort of rosette of green down below, then a sort of nice sort of stem, and then the flowers really clear on top. I really love those. I've actually got some sort of nearby, also within a bed of hostas, and the polyanthus come up first, and then as the polyanthus go down, the hostas are coming up and they take their place. Good morning, Martin. Of course, the only problem with that is that obviously, polyanthus leaves are quite thick, and you do get sort of little slugs hiding underneath them, and of course they love hostas, so we do have to keep a check on them. Now, when with any type of seeds, and particularly with wallflowers, there is a thing called flea beetle, which is it's like a pinhead, shiny black beetle that sort of hops about a bit like a flea. And it can be a problem with young seedlings. It doesn't seem to bother them if you've got them on a capillary matting, but when they're sort of sitting surrounded by garden plants, the beetle may sort of pepper every seedling leaf with holes, and sort of have a nibble, and they move on to the next one. It's not enough to kill the young wallflower plants, but it holds them back by a few weeks. And Sarah Raven actually learned a really good tip for getting rid of flea beetle, which I think is absolutely genius, and it's a really good organic way of doing it. And what it is, you actually go along, you get someone to walk along with, those sort of sticky fly trap things. You get someone to walk along with one of those stretched across the line of wallflowers, and then you follow close behind them, ruffling the leaves of every single plant, and the flea beetles hop up and they get stuck to the sticky trap. And that's it. And then you can just dispose of them. I think that's brilliant. And it's a great way of dealing with them. You can also, if you've got sellotape, you can just wrap sellotape around your hand, sticky side out, and you can sort of go over the whole of the leaves like this. And you'll be surprised when you take it off how many will have stuck to that as well. So there's a couple of ways there to get rid of the horrible flea beetle. But you must with wallflowers, as I said, you must get them into their final flowering position by the end of August. So Mark, hopefully that's answered your query with regards to what can we be sowing now for that winter sort of early spring colour. So that was pansies, polyanthus and wallflowers. All three of them really, really easy to grow from seed. Pansies a little bit more sort of temperamental, shall we say, with regards to wanting a nice steady temperature and making sure that the water regiment is sort of nice and even. But the polyanthus and the wallflowers, they are very, very, very easy to do. I would still say pansies are easy to do. You just need to get the knack of it, really. And that's what gardening is about. At the end of the day, we all try and hope for the best and see where we go from there. But, they're great plants. And I think people sometimes forget about these sort of winter, spring bedding plants. And they're really important for our gardens because they bring that sort of shot of colour that we really need at that time of the year. And as I say, they're really easy to grow from seed. And of course, you can also get them from your garden centres and your nurseries. And uh, we need to support our garden centres and our local nurseries. We do need to do that, especially in these times. And it's great news that they'll actually be opening up very soon as well. So obviously, social distancing, please keep your distance, but it's great that you'll be able to go and start buying plants. Mark says, great, thanks you for the info. I've answered his query, but he said, can we grow wallflowers in pots? You can grow wallflowers in pots. What I would probably suggest, though, with wallflowers in pots is if you can, grow them in those little coir pellets first, grow them on a little bit, and then you can move them out into the pot. As long as you get them out by the end of August again, you'll be absolutely fine. Use a really good sort of peat-free multi-purpose compost, or if you really want to, you could use a nice sort of loam-based compost, soil-based compost. Something like a John Innes number 2 will be absolutely fine in a pot. That will give it a little bit more weight and a bit more stability as well. And it also has that added sort of extra grit within it to help water to flow through it. So, yeah, absolutely. So, pansies, polyanthus and wallflowers can all be done in pots. So even if you've got a tiny space, if you've got just a terrace or you've just got hanging baskets, you can still do it because you can put them in the pots. And as I said earlier, pansies in a sort of a window box, I think are lovely. I think there's something about that. I think I probably saw them, I think, when I was in France one year, and I just loved it because there was an apartment block, and almost every single window had these window boxes, and they were all growing pansies. But it looked stunning. It looked really, really lovely. And I think, we should all be doing a bit more of that. So we should be celebrating our bedding plants when it comes to winter and spring displays. And then, of course, as sort of perennials and shrubs and things get going, then obviously those pansies and those polyanthus and the wallflowers will die back. With the pansies and with the polyanthus, they will probably come back year after year. I mean, I've got polyanthus in my garden which continually come back. Pansies, a little bit more temperamental again because of that temperature fluctuations and what have you. Wallflowers, no, because they're biennial really. There we are, lovely, lovely plants that are easy to grow. My next question is from Phil, who I know has joined us, and he sent me a photo of standard rose called Sheila's Perfume, and he says, I've pruned it hard and it seems to grow quicker and higher each year. It's already up to 10 feet. The flowers are always too high up. Any ideas how to bring the flowers down a bit? First of all, the Sheila's Perfume is a really gorgeous floribunda rose. It's a good repeat flowering rose. It's really, really fragrant. And wildlife really loves it, with full blooms of yellow edged with red. So I can understand, Phil, why you want to bring those lower down so you can enjoy them more rather than all the scent being up there and just the wildlife enjoying them. They're normally good bushy roses with really good healthy foliage. But it normally only grows to about 90 centimetres max, i.e. 3 feet. So first of all, you're definitely doing something right because, it's growing well, but it's growing a bit too well. Because it looks from the photos, and as you say, it's 10 feet, twice the size of that. So it's not even 3 times the size. So several reasons why this might be. As we know, pruning ensures that plants grow vigorously and flower well. But you want the flowers close to you for best effect. So first of all, prune in late winter when growth is just resuming, about mid sort of February time in the south, and probably around about sort of, March in the north. Unlike hybrid teas, which are pruned low, floribunda stems should be left longer with more buds on them. You then do the good old 4Ds, as I say. So you prune out your dead, diseased, dying and decaying branches, any that are rubbing, any that are crossing. And if there are some old stems, prune them out completely, because you want all that lovely new growth, which is going to be the new growth for the flowers. Then what you need to do, you cut back the strongest remaining shoots to within 25 to 30 centimeters from the soil. You can also then prune less vigorous shoots back more severely, even down as low as sort of 5 to 10 centimeters from the soil. Now, from the picture that you sent me, Phil, it looked like that there was sort of a strong main stem where you sort of pruned back before, and then you sort of had some started to come out. So you sort of almost created like a second level, and you really wanted to go back a lot more. So I would probably prune right back to the first main stem. It will be drastic, but you will reduce the length of the stems. You might not get so many blooms that year or this year, but at least you are starting lower down. I know it's really tempting with roses to sort of just leave them and just sort of, because they're looking so gorgeous, to leave them at a really good height. But it's really important for floribunda roses to be cut back to 25 to 30 centimeters. And of course, with hybrid teas, really low down as well. So there's a sort of 3-year sort of pruning regimen that you could follow. So in the first year of pruning, and I don't know if you did this, Phil, after, apologies, 1 second, I just need to, that's it, that's all gone. Sorry about that. First year of pruning. So after planting the roses, roses are pruned at sort of the aforementioned periods, leaving 3 to 5 buds from the soil level. Plus, you still need to cut out all the weak branches as well. And over time, new shoots will appear on the plant. So I don't know if you did that in the first year, because as I say, it does look like you've got this stem, a sort of a really woody stem, and then you sort of got this second tier. So I don't know if you did that in the first year. In the second year of pruning, after planting the floribunda rose, in February and March, all major annual basal branches should be shortened by about a third. And then the side branches are cut to 2 to 3 buds, or 10 to 15 centimeters from the base. Now, in order for the center of the bush to not thicken, strong growths on the old stalks are cut out completely, or they can be shortened to 3 to 5 buds from their base. And then in subsequent years, first of all, cut off the strong annual branches to a third of their length, then leave 2 to 5 buds for 2-year increments. And if you're confident that your rose bush is heavily thickened, then remove the entire individual old stalks. Cut out all non-flowering shoots and those that are not covered with hard bark, i.e. what's called lignified. So if they're still sort of green and sort of a bit bendy, don't do that yet. But for those that have not covered with hard bark, i.e. those ones that are green, those are the ones that need to be cut back. And if they're non-flowered, then definitely cut them back. So there's sort of like a 3-year thing there to do, Phil. So as I say, I don't know what you did in the first year. The other thing it could be is, are you overfeeding your roses? Obviously, I know that, we need to feed roses. And as I always say, good old slow release, something like fish blood and bone is really good sprinkled in, or chicken manure pellets is really good. Water it, and then sort of put a mulch of homemade compost if you can, or compost. You can also put well-rotted manure around them, obviously keeping a ring around the main stem that it's clear. You could use that, but maybe you are putting too much feed on it. So hopefully, by sort of pruning it back harder, you may forego the flowers for 1 year. But you can then start that 3-year cycle of pruning, and hopefully that will bring your flowers down to sort of the height that they should be, which is sort of around this sort of height, so you can sort of enjoy them either from standing or from a seated position. And as I say, Sheila's Perfume is a gorgeous rose, yellow petals edged with red. Really, really beautiful. Wildlife loves it. It is a beautiful rose. And I hope, fingers crossed, Phil, that will work for you. I would say that if roses will start to be flowering soon. I've got loads out in my garden already, which is lovely to see. Is that if you're feeling really brave, Phil, go out there and chop it back. And that way, then the new shoots can come up and you'll then be able to enjoy. You may get some flowers later in the season if you do that, because we're still early on in the rose flowering season. So, it's still got time for new branches to develop and for new flower buds to develop. And then that way you're bringing the plant much lower down. Next question. Unfortunately, I don't have a name with this one, but they've asked, what is the best way to stake my dahlias? So this is obviously when someone's, which is about now really, if you've been hardening off your plants, dahlias can start to go out. Phil just got back to me. Before I get onto the dahlias, he says that's really helpful. I pruned way too early and have definitely overfed. I've had loads of flowers already. I think I'm feeling brave. Good, go for it, Phil. Go on, go out there and chop it back. If you've been feeding it, then obviously, it's still going to be growing. It's still going to send up new shoots. So fingers crossed that will work for you, Phil. So what is the best way to stake my dahlias? So as I say, we've obviously been hardening off our plants, ready to get them out, and they can start going out into the garden in May. All you need for this is 3 bamboo canes, a more sort of thicker bamboo cane or sort of like a wooden stake, and some garden twine. And I would say that your canes and your stake, ideally you want them to be around about 1.2, 1.5 meters in length. But always think about how high your dahlia plant is going to be, because when you put the stakes and the bamboo canes in, you don't want to see them when the plant's been growing. So you push them in to the height so that when you know that you've got your leaf and you then got your flowers above, you don't see the stakes. The stakes are sort of down below that sort of leaf level. So 1.2 might be taller if if your dahlias are only 60 centimeters tall, for example. So in that case, only use something like a 60 centimeter length cane, and then you can push half of it into the soil, and you've still got 6 centimeters there as well. That's good to hear. Thank you, Mark. So Mark has just said the feed is excellent this week. Brilliant, because I know we've had problems with it over the last couple of weeks. So I'm really, really pleased about that. Good. So how do we do these dahlias then? So first of all, don't plant your plant first and then put your stakes in, because if you do that, then there is the possibility that you put your stake right through the roots of your dahlia or even the tubers of your dahlia, and of course you don't want that. So first of all, you must insert the canes and the bamboo canes and the stake in first. So what you need to do, you insert the bamboo canes sort of 40 to 50 centimeters apart to create a triangle with a strong cane right in the center. And the center is where the dahlia plant's going to go, and the triangle goes around. So here you have a bamboo cane, here you have a bamboo cane, here you have a bamboo cane. And as I say, you want it to be about 40, 50 centimeters apart. And then you put your thicker cane or stake in the center. And as I say, make sure that you think about the height of your dahlia. And then you want that center stake, so the center stake here, to also be about 50 centimeters away from the corners as well. Because remember, dahlia plants do grow quite big with all their leaf and everything. So you need to think about that sort of additional sort of size that they're going to get to. Then what you need to do is you need to water the soil and let the water drain completely away. Then take your dahlia plant, which you've obviously watered as well beforehand, and then you put it right in front of that center strong cane or strong stake. And then you basically just repeat that for the other ones. And you want to leave about 90 centimeters from the center of the triangle to the next center of the triangle to the next center of the triangle. And when I'm saying this, I'm talking about the dahlias, which are, things like Bishop of Llandaff, the ones that are sort of going to get quite big. They're going to get to about sort of 1 meter in height. And because they get 1 meter in height, they'll also get to around about 60, 80 centimeters wide as well. So by doing them as 90 centimeter centers, you're going to ensure that each dahlia has got enough room around it, there's enough air circulation around them, they're going to be healthy, they're going to grow, they're going to be really, really lovely. And then what I would do is, obviously as your dahlias have been growing, is if you've got any of the strong stems coming up, is to start tying those into the central stake as well. And then obviously as they grow, you keep continually tying them into that central stake. And then with the remainder of the twine, you sort of create like a cat's cradle all the way around the 3 bamboo canes. And then what happens is that they sort of corset the dahlia plant that's in the center. So you've got the central stake, which the stems are tied to, and then the leaves and the other stems which are on the outside, which can sometimes get a little bit floppy, are going to be supported by this cat's cradle of twine that goes around the 3 bamboo canes around the outside. And that's really the best way of supporting your dahlias. You can also, if you're growing them, especially just as cut flowers, or you've got a long border where you've got similar height plants going in as well, there's some wonderful, you can get either done in hemp or twine, or you can get it as plastic. And it's just basically a large open mesh or an open net. And the squares are probably around about sort of 5 centimeters by 5 centimeters each one. So they've got to be quite large, because remember, you've got to allow for the dahlia flowers and the leaves to go through them. And what you do, you simply just put 4 bamboo canes around the outside. You then spread the netting over absolutely everything that's going to be growing up, and then just keep an eye on it, and then the plants, all your plants will start coming up through it, and then in no time at all of that netting will disappear. It will only really disappear if you've got plants of all similar heights, which will disguise it, but it's another great way of doing it. And it's a great way if you've got, as I say, lots of different plants. So if you're growing dahlias alongside other herbaceous perennials, which are of a similar height, then that's a really good, very quick way of doing it. And of course, you can get some of these that are coloured green, so they'll just disappear within the green foliage. The sort of the ones that are made from hemp or twine are brilliant because they're very natural looking, and they sort of disappear very, very quickly as opposed to the plastic ones. So that's another way of just sort of supporting your lovely flowering plants. I've actually made up some frames, sort of permanent frames, where I've just done a simple wooden frame, like a picture frame, and then I've stapled some black nylon netting over it, very, very taut, doesn't go anywhere, and then made some very simple wooden stakes with some little pegs in the top, and then the whole thing just sits on the top, and then as the plants pop through, the plants go through it, and then you don't see it anymore. And I use that in our garden. So it's great for larger areas, but why not just go back to the 3 bamboo canes, your twine, and your central stake? Because that way, your dahlias will love it, and then they'll grow happily and be lovely and supported. My next question, and unfortunately I don't have a name again for this one, is my apple is flowering really well. How do I ensure a bumper crop this year? Well, first of all, congratulations. Your tree is obviously very happy, and the pollinators will be loving the flowers. Something really lovely, special, I think, about fruiting flowers. They're always lovely and open. You always see them just covered in hoverflies, bees, and other beneficial pollinators. It's really lovely to see. And you can really understand why, the Japanese really love and the Chinese love this time of year, because it is beautiful. As I say, we've got a small orchard here, and we sort of get different ranges. We sort of get the plums coming out, which are really lovely white. We got a crab apple, which is a really deep pink one. We've then got the apples, which come out with their pure white flowers. And then we've got a cherry, which has a nice delicate pink as well. And it just looks lovely, especially when you sort of get like a confetti of all the petals all over the grass. I just leave it because I think it looks absolutely beautiful as well. Anyway, I'm waffling on. Back to your bumper crop of apples. So wait until all of the blossom has disappeared. So, once it's all sort of scattered off down below, and wait until you see those small young fruitlets forming on the branches. And what I mean by that is they look like sort of tiny apples. They'll have the stem and they'll have a little fruitlet on the end. So wait until you see those. And then this is the time to go in and thin out the apple fruit. And you need to thin them out, and that will actually result in a bumper crop. And I know it sounds a bit odd, but it will do. And by doing it at an early stage, the plant's energy will be diverted into the fruits that are left. Makes sense, really. Now, commercial growers will do this in early summer, but us normal gardeners, we can wait really until after what's called the June drop, when a tree will naturally drop its fruit. It's nothing to panic about. It's a naturally occurring event. It just happens. So we can leave it until after that's happened. If you want to do it, you can do it early summer, sort of nowish if you want to. But it's really, you've got to see those little fruitlets. So if you haven't seen those little fruitlets yet, don't do it yet. Now, the main reason for thinning out the fruitlets is to improve the fruit size and the quality of the apples that are going to be left on there. And really heavy crops normally result in smaller, poorer quality fruits. And of course, branches can sometimes snap from the sheer weight of too many fruits actually on a branch. So, you're helping the tree out by thinning them. So that's what the June drop is almost doing. It's a naturally occurring thing, but it doesn't do it enough. So that's where man needs to come in and just give a little helping hand. Thinning also allows sunlight and air to penetrate and get around all those branches, improving an evenness of ripening. And also thinning lessens the demand on the tree's resources, meaning that fruit buds can develop as well for the following year. Because obviously we want these apple trees to give us fruit year on year. So by doing the thinning, you're going to result in a bumper crop this year, but you're also helping it to produce enough buds ready for the next year. And then imagine your apple fully grown on the branch and leave enough space so that the apples will not touch when they're fully formed. So what I mean by that is, if you know what type of apple you're growing, you'll know what size it is. And as a rule of thumb, sort of a small fist, mine's probably a little bit too big, but a small fist is normally the size of an average apple. You want to sort of allow enough space between each of your fruitlets where those apples will then grow to that size without touching. Now, of course, if they're cooking apples, they're going to need to be thinned harder than dessert apples to obtain those larger fruits. So for cooking apples, you want to aim for one fruit every 15 to 20 centimeters. And then for dessert apples, you want to aim for one or even two fruits every 10 to 15 centimeters. And then leave one fruit per cluster of fruitlets. Hopefully that makes sense. I'll just go back over that just in case not. So for cooking apples, you want to aim for one fruit every 15 to 20 centimeters. And then for dessert apples, you want to aim for one or two fruits every 10 to 15 centimeters. But leave one fruit per cluster of fruitlets. Because when those little fruitlets come up, they normally come up with about three, maybe even four sometimes little fruitlets. So as long as you leave one of those, you'll be absolutely fine. But you've got to remember to leave 10 to 15 centimeters between each one to allow enough space for your apples to grow. And you will also find a misshapen fruit at the center of your little fruitlet clusters. And this is actually known as the king fruit, and that should be removed. So always, if you see on your little fruitlets, if there's a sort of a little deformed shaped, misshapen one, always remove that one. It's just what nature does. So remove that one and then look at your other fruitlets that are left and then just leave one that's there as well. If you've got enough space, you may be able to leave two. And then as the apples start to grow, then just keep checking on them and making sure that they're not going to be touching or rubbing, because obviously what that can also cause is that, if you grow them too closely together, that can also result in misshapen apples, but it can also sort of cause blight as well, because you sort of get the fruits rubbing against each other, and you don't want that as well. So allow enough space. So I know it sounds odd, you've got all this blossom on your tree, you start seeing loads and loads of little fruitlets forming, and you're thinking, yay, I'm going to have hundreds and hundreds of apples this year. Well, hundreds and hundreds is probably lovely if you're a commercial grower, but as us normal growers, that's probably way too many for us to eat. So just be more picky and thin out your fruitlets, and that way you'll still have a bumper crop, but you'll have really good sized apples of really good quality. So it does pay off. It does pay off to do it. So there we go. So I've got another question. Unfortunately, I don't have a name for this one either. I'm really sorry. So question here is, what are some great herbs for making your own herbal teas? Well, this is funny actually, because I literally bought, before lockdown happened, an online collection of herbs exactly for this reason. I love herbal teas. I drink a lot of them. I don't drink any caffeine. So me being hyper is all down to me rather than the caffeine. But you want the herbs that are going to be easy to grow, and obviously ones that you're going to enjoy. And you want them to be full of flavour, with different flavours. And if you want to sort of improve your health and well-being, then you could look for those herbs which have some medicinal benefits as well. Now, I need to stress, I'm not a doctor, and any advice that I give relating to any of the herbs that I'm going to mention is purely from research that has been done and what the plant growers tell us, and from what history has told us as well, and how these medicinal herbs can help us and in what ways they can help us. So I just need to stress that I'm not a doctor, but always check when buying, and I'd say do your research. Now, the collection I went for lemon verbena, sweet chamomile, 5-leaf ginseng, English peppermint, and pineapple sage. Now, all of these are fully hardy, except for the lemon verbena, which is a half-hardy plant. So you just need to bring that indoors just before the frosts happen. And when I mean indoors, i.e. a conservatory or greenhouse, you can bring it even indoors onto a windowsill, and then you can continue to use your lemon verbena inside. So those are the ones I went for. So if I just break them down and just say a little bit about each one and what they can do, then hopefully that will sort of inspire you to grow your own herbal teas. So lemon verbena, which is Lipia citriodora, it's one of my favourite herbs actually, because it has this gorgeous lemon flavoured tea, and it's been used for centuries to stop muscle spasms, as a fever reducer, as a sedative. It helps indigestion, and it increases appetite as well. And as its name suggests, it produces a bright yellow cup with a really citrusy aroma. It's really gorgeous. It's a really refreshing lemony flavour with a smooth, almost creaminess mouthful, really. It's lighter and more fragrant than, for example, lemongrass tea. I find lemon verbena much nicer than lemongrass tea. And it sort of also has this sort of gentle herbal notes going on as well, which sort of sets it apart from all those other lemony flavours. So altogether, it's a wonderfully balanced cup, really. It's lovely. So you've got these aromatic lemon in harmony with a delicate, natural sweetness. Really is lovely, really lovely herb to grow. The next one is sweet chamomile, Chamomillum nobile. I know, hell of a mouthful. Now this is a mat-forming habit and attractive dense foliage with a wonderful sort of apple-like, I suppose, fragrance to it. It's lovely tea. It's fully hardy. And chamomile contains what's called flavonoids. And these flavonoids are a type of nutrient present in many plants. And they also play a significant role in chamomile's medicinal effects. They help reduce menstrual pain. They help lower blood sugar. They slow osteoporosis. It helps reduce inflammation, helps sleep and relaxation, treats cold symptoms. And it tastes like, I suppose with that apple, it sort of tastes like a crisp apple with an earthy floral sweetness. And you've probably seen, and probably people have told you, that chamomile is a great tea to have just before you go to bed. And it is. It's a great tea just before you go to bed because it relaxes you. It helps with your sleep and relaxation. So that's my number 2. My third one, which is the 5-leaf ginseng, which is Gynostemma pentaphyllum juagulan. Now I know that's a bit on that. The last one is spelled, for those who want to know, is Jiaogulan. Now this is perfect for herbal teas and it's got numerous medicinal uses as well. It's fully hardy. It's a delicious addition also to soups, salads and sauces. It has healing properties. It has small white flowers that bloom in the summer. It really is a lovely herb. And after it blooms, little dark purple berries appear. Don't eat them. But it's the whole thing, ginseng, you've probably seen it in loads of different drinks. It's known as the miracle grass or the fairy herb or even sweet tea. And it's meant to be the herb of immortality. It's antimicrobial. It's been shown to help with obesity. It's a great antioxidant and it helps lower blood sugar. And it also contains amino acids and minerals and vitamins, including selenium, magnesium, zinc, calcium, I think iron as well. It has a slightly bittersweet taste. And what I would recommend with the ginseng is less is better than more. So, try it out. As with all of the herbal teas, really, you can find, how much you should steep your teas for to get the taste that you want. So with ginseng, that less is definitely more to go for. But again, a lovely herb. Next one, English peppermint or Mensa cross Pepperita citaro. Now this is the best variety, I think, anyway, for making a delicious cup of fragrant mint tea. It's fully hardy and mint tea helps ease mental fatigue and it's also a great afternoon pick-me-up. So it's also great for nausea, for abdominal pains, and it also freshens your breath. It helps improve your sleep, and it can be enjoyed hot or cold. I mean, herbal teas I always prefer to be sort of on the warm side. I don't normally like cold herbal teas. Sometimes the fruity ones I do, so it just tastes like a fruity drink, really. But peppermint tea you can drink hot or cold, and it's also great as an after dinner drink. I normally have it after a dinner because it helps, as I say, with digestion. It helps you to improve your any abdominal pain that you might get after eating. It has this peppermint sort of has a slight sort of peppery flavour to it, but it's also got some sweetness and of course that lovely minty flavour that we all want. So really, really good. Obviously, when it's in the ground, if you're growing it in the ground, be careful because all mints love to grow outwards and spread and spread. So I would always say grow it in a pot. If you're going to grow it in the ground, then grow it in a pot and sink the pot in the ground. Or if you've got a designated part of the garden where it can just grow on its own, then just let it grow there as well. You can also grow it in the ground, and if you've got any sort of spare roofing tiles or anything like that, you can put those around the side. If you've got any spare patio slabs, you can bury them as well vertically around the plant. That will stop the roots from spreading out as well. So lovely one to have, but just make sure that you're a bit mindful of the fact that peppermint does like to spread. Then the last one is the pineapple sage, Salvia elegans. And this variety makes a wonderfully refreshing tea and can be drunk again hot or cold. It's fully hardy and it has sort of a citrusy, piney taste, I suppose, and is great as a tea. It can be used in cocktails, smoothies, salads and salsas. It helps with depression and it's a tonic for digestion. It helps reduce inflammation. It's a remedy for colds and it can also help with excessive sweating and actually has been shown to help balance hormones as well. So a really good one there, pineapple sage. And with all of these, all you do is simply take a few leaves, add boiling water and leave it to steep. Now with herbal teas, ideally you want them to steep, and fresh herbal teas, you want them to steep for about 4 to 5 minutes and then drink them. And over those 4 to 5 minutes, obviously the temperature will drop a bit as well, so it's the perfect temperature to drink. But you need that 4 to 5 minutes to get the real flavour to come out. But as I said, we're all different. We all like our teas in slightly different strengths. So just play around with it. I've got one of those lovely sort of, it's like a glass teapot. And then in the center is where you put your tea leaves or your own herbal teas. And then you add your water and it's got like a filter out through the center. And that's really great because once I can see the color that is forming inside that glass teapot, I can then take out that center bit and I've still got that really delicious tea. If I want the sort of a stronger tea as I'm getting through that teapot, I just leave that little container and center in there and it still infuses as as I'm drinking another cup. So, you know, they're great to have, but you'll be amazed at the colors of these teas. You know, it's not just, you know, the fact that you're growing these, you're then going to be adding them into your meals, into your salads. But you'll be amazed at the colour of your tea as well, and that makes a real difference when you're drinking. So if you can, also try and drink it in a glass cup as well, because that will make a real difference. So that's all of everything there. Now, it is 10 to, so I have been waffling on for 50 odd minutes, but I did say we had time, whether we could do a query. And again, unfortunately, I can't remember the person's name, but they sent me some photos of a peony, and the flowers were a little misshapen. And when I say a little misshapen, they sort of looked a bit like an old-fashioned rose, where you know they sort of been cut off on the top, but it's got the ball still of the peony flower in the centre. So it looked rather strange. And the only thing I can really say with regards to this is it could be down to a natural occurrence which is called proliferation, and it happens a lot with roses as well. And that's where what happens is that the bud sort of starts to open, and then it still continues to grow through the center. So you start getting the petals coming out, but you still get the green center in the middle. So you sort of get this odd misshapen thing. So it could be that. But there is a thing specifically on peonies called bud blast. And this is caused by really anything that stresses it. And it's a condition where peony buds can just fail to open. And I think that's probably what's happening, because in the photo, you know, you've got it looked like a very healthy plant. There was a lot of green on it. And you had your bubbles of buds on the peony buds on the top, but they weren't open. And the ones that were had this sort of odd shape going on. So it could be that. And the reason and causes for this condition, bud blast, can include several things. It could be infertile soil. It could be that when you actually planted the plant, you may have planted it too deep. It might be in too much shade. I don't think so from the photo. Drought and cold weather can obviously also affect it, especially if we get late frosts. So it could be bud blast. There is also botrytis blight as well. And that's where the flower buds sort of become brown and papery, and you sort of get a grey mould appearing over the top. But I would probably say that it's just a natural occurrence. But what I would do is wait till the season is over. So once the plant has decided to flower or not flower, depending on whether it wants to open or not. When it goes into its dormant stage, I would then sort of look at your soil. The soil looked very, very dry. I have to say, it did look incredibly dry. So you could, in the meantime, you could sort of try and give it a good soak and put a nice sort of top dressing of homemade compost or bought compost on the top. Maybe give it a little bit of a feed as well, the slow release fertilizer. Because remember, again, you want a nice healthy plant for next year. You can also, there's the mycorrhizal fungi, but there are also things called root boosters as well on the market. And you can just simply add these into the soil, even just onto the top, near to the roots. And what that allows it to do, it allows to hold on to the moisture within the compost. It also feeds it. It also allows for more root development as well. So I think there's probably several things. I'll say the soil looks very dry, so maybe the watering isn't quite right. You could, if you feel like it's really distracting, you could just cut off all those flower buds. I know it's a shame for this year, because I love peonies. I've got loads of them in my garden. I've got a rose and peony border, and I love peonies. And I must stress, actually, while I think about that, is a lot of the time you also see on your peony buds ants crawling over it. They don't do it any harm whatsoever. All they're after is the sugariness from the flower, and that's all they eat. They don't eat the flower at all, or the bud. They're literally just there, and actually they're brilliant because if there's any green fly on any other plants around, the ants will actually go and get the green fly as well. So where I've got the roses, if I've got black fly or green fly on my roses, I love seeing the ants on my peonies because I know that they're going to get those as well. Natural predators, which is what we're after. So I hope that answers the query on your misshapen peony flower. I do apologise, and I'm so sorry for you. But as I say, you could cut them all off and just leave and enjoy the greenery. But just have a look and think about how you planted it. Did you plant it too deeply? Have a look at that soil. It did look incredibly dry. It maybe needs a bit more nutrient within it. Because peonies are heavy feeders at the end of the day. They produce these large flowers, which are gorgeous, and that takes a lot of energy. And that energy, we need to feed that energy. So I'd say look at the soil, look at the way that you've been watering it as well. Depending upon where you live in the country, did you get any late frosts as well? I mean, I know that weather has changed, and they're even saying we could even get some frosts this week or even over the weekend. So just keep an eye on that as well. But I know it's not looking great, but you've still got a flower of some kind there. Not sort of the flower you'd really want to cut through indoors, I know, but hopefully, either bud blast, proliferation, look at your soil, look at the way that you planted it, and look at your watering, and hopefully then for next year, giving it a good feed as well, hopefully looking next year, the flowers will come out and be absolutely gorgeous. So there we are, guys. That's almost a full hour this week. I do apologise that it was on a Sunday and not yesterday. I did my debut on QVC, which I thoroughly enjoyed. It was great fun to do. And I will be doing more. I don't know whether it will be on Saturday, so I will let everybody know. If you all think that Sunday is better than Saturday, then let me know as well. Please let me know via social media. It's probably the easiest. I do check back on my message. I think I do. I love to get all your feedback as well, so please do continue to send me all of your questions. Please share, like the videos with everybody that you know. The more comments I get, the more shares and the more likes I get, then the better reviews I get as well. So the more we can get going, then the more I can help people. So there we are, everybody. Happy gardening. Keep safe for another week. and enjoy your garden. Goodbye, everybody.